What if the person who haunts you the most were yourself? That's exactly what started happening to me. There were no ghosts, no strangers lurking in the dark. It was something much deeper, something coming from within. My name is Daniel, and until recently, I thought I was an ordinary guy. I worked in an office, followed a predictable routine. Wake up, coffee, traffic, work, home. Simple, right? But something started quietly chipping away at that normality. It began with small dreams, almost unnoticeable, but they left behind a feeling I just couldn't shake. A shadow started following me, always distant, yet always there, reflecting something I couldn't yet understand. At first, I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was just stress. Or maybe I wasn't sleeping well. But the feeling of being watched never went away. In fact, the more I tried to push the thought out of my head, the more real it became. Every shadow in the corner of my eye, every reflection in a window seemed to hide a piece of myself that I hadn't met yet. I was caught between fear and a strange kind of fascination. Fear, because something was challenging my reality. Fascination, because a part of me seemed to want to reveal itself. Without even realizing it, I was being pulled into a labyrinth inside my own mind, where every step felt both familiar and absolutely terrifying. It was the beginning of a journey that would change how I saw myself forever. And it all started with that one unsettling thought. The person who haunts me the most is me. The small signs kept appearing. Dreams that felt more real than my waking life. Shadows that moved when nothing was there to cast them. And that constant, disturbing feeling of being watched. I tried to rationalize it all. It's just fatigue, I'd tell myself. But every night, the dreams got more intense. A shadowy, indistinct figure would drift closer and then farther away with this unsettling, natural grace. It never spoke, but its presence was louder than any words. It felt disturbingly familiar, like it was mirroring parts of me I had pushed down and ignored for years. During the day, I started noticing subtle changes in myself. Being alone suddenly felt uncomfortable. Something always seemed to be watching me, testing my limits. My mood would swing wildly from irritation to restlessness, and my memory and concentration started to fail. Dreams and reality began to blur together, making it hard to tell what was real and what was just in my head. My entire routine started to crumble. Every shadow, every unexpected sound, every forgotten memory seemed to be preparing me for something I couldn't yet comprehend. The nights became the main stage for this restless presence. The moment I closed my eyes, I was transported to these undefined places, a mix of familiar scenes from my life and strange spaces that seemed to emerge from the darkest corners of my mind. And there it was, the shadowy figure, still faceless, but with an aura that felt like both a threat and a curious invitation. My heart would race, my breathing would get shallow, and I just knew it was reflecting something deep inside of me. At first, I brushed them off as just vivid dreams from being overworked. But that feeling of being pursued started to leak into my days. The figure didn't need to move. Its presence alone was enough to set me on edge. Every dream would end abruptly, but the feeling of being followed would stick with me until the next night. I started seeing signs in the real world, two shadows that moved in weird ways, reflections in shop windows that didn't quite match my position, faint sighs that seemed to answer my thoughts. Trying to ignore it or explain it away only made the shadow's presence stronger. It was like it could anticipate my thoughts and was actively challenging my deepest fears. Then one night, the dream was more intense than ever before. The figure came closer than it ever had. And for the first time, I felt a flicker of recognition, a familiar echo that sent a shiver down my entire body. The shadow wasn't just some external thing, it was a part of me, a hidden, repressed part that was demanding to be seen. When I woke up, I was filled with both terror and fascination. Every shadow, every reflection, every moment of silence now carried the memory of that present. Something inside me was starting to wake up. I tried to run from it. I'd wake up hoping that the shadow was just a bad memory from an old dream, but that hope never lasted long. The more I tried to ignore it, the more intense the feeling of being watched became. During the day, it would creep in through subtle details. A distorted reflection on a glass door, a shadow that stretched just a little too long, a flicker of movement in the corner of my vision. Of course, when I'd look directly, nothing was there, but I could feel its constant presence. My own mind started playing tricks on me. I'd have these strange memory lapses, or I'd overreact to the smallest things. The escape wasn't just physical, it was mental. I started avoiding thinking too deeply about anything. I stopped looking in mirrors. I dodged any chance to reflect on who I really was. But the shadow didn't give up. Every attempt I made to run away only strengthened its influence, turning my fears into a self-fulfilling prophecy. I finally realized that the more I ran, the more inevitable our meeting became. Every mistake at work, every argument with a friend, every moment of distraction was a reminder that the shadow wasn't outside of me. It was inside me, and resisting it was only making its presence stronger. There was no way out. The only way to survive was to turn around and face the very thing I had been denying, and I still had no idea how to do that. The shadow began to completely invade my daily life. At work, I started making mistakes I'd never made before. I lost important documents, made bad judgment calls, and had these crucial memory lapses. My colleagues started looking at me strangely. You could feel the tension growing with my friends. Small disagreements would blow up into huge conflicts. It was like the shadow was pulling the strings of my emotions, stirring up anger, anxiety, and frustration when I least expected it. Every attempt I made to hold on to my normal life failed. I felt completely isolated, confused, and I wasn't sure who I could trust anymore, or if I could even trust myself. My mind had become a maze. The memory gaps left me feeling insecure, and every shadow, every reflection, every sound felt like a personal challenge that only I could understand. At night, the dreams got even more intense. The shadow seemed to be waiting for me, almost like it knew what was happening. It understood my fears and my weaknesses. I felt trapped between two worlds: the real world, with its daily defeats, and the dream world, where the shadow watched my every move. It was this constant, invisible, suffocating pressure. The more I tried to escape, the more unavoidable the confrontation became. But then I realized something crucial. The shadow wasn't just an enemy. It was a reflection of all the parts of myself I had ignored. Denying them was only making it stronger. The situation was escalating, and I knew that discovering the truth about this presence was going to be the most important and riskiest thing I'd ever do. After weeks of this mounting tension, I finally admitted I couldn't do it alone. The line between my dreams and reality had completely dissolved. I no longer knew where the world ended and my fear began. I'd heard about a therapist who worked with something called Jungian psychology. I booked a session, not even knowing what I was going to say. When I walked into his office, the space felt quiet and welcoming. I started recounting everything that had been happening, fully expecting him to think I was crazy. But the therapist just listened attentively, without any surprise or quick diagnosis. He then started talking about the shadow, a psychological concept for the repressed parts of ourselves, the denied emotions, the forgotten fragments of our personality. He explained that when we ignore these parts for too long, they start to manifest themselves, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in our behavior, and sometimes as a shadowy figure. I left that first session with a strange mix of relief and unease. For the first time, someone had given a name to what I was feeling. But along with that relief came a heavy certainty. If I wanted to free myself, I had to face the one thing I feared the most myself. The therapy sessions became my safe space. In that room, I could finally speak without fear. Each meeting felt like a deep dive into my own mind. The therapist would ask, "What does this shadow represent to you?" At first, I had no idea how to answer. But as we talked, I started noticing patterns. The figure usually appeared when I was hiding something anger I didn't want to admit to, guilt over a past mistake, or regret about a choice I'd made. It emerged whenever I lied to myself or pretended to be someone I wasn't. I came to understand that the shadow was the sum of everything I had repressed, the choices I avoided, the words I swallowed, the impulses I denied. It was the raw, unfiltered version of me that I had locked away, and now it was breaking free. Thank you so much for watching and going on this journey with me. If this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time.